The enormous crystal dome of the Galactic Council Chamber stretched up toward the stars, its walls shimmering with the soft glow of 1,000 worlds. Representatives from every major civilization in the galaxy sat in their specially designed seats, their various forms of alien biology accommodated by the ancient architecture. The Zephyrians, with their bird-like features and golden feathers, rustled nervously. The hulking crystalline beings hummed in their harmonic frequency. The tall, graceful Astra swayed their long necks as they whispered among themselves. But today, the chamber was silent, dead silent. The kind of silence that comes before terrible news. Admiral Kree of the Hegemony Forces stood at the central podium, his 6 arms folded behind his back. His uniform was crisp and clean, decorated with medals from a dozen different campaigns. His large, compound eyes swept across the assembled delegates as he prepared to speak. When he finally opened his mouth, his voice carried across the chamber, with the weight of absolute authority. Esteemed colleagues, I stand before you today to confirm what our deep space monitoring stations have verified. The human homeworld of Earth, along with its entire solar system, has been completely consumed by the Void Swarm. There are no survivors. Humanity is extinct. The silence that followed was deafening. Then slowly, like a wave spreading across water, the alien delegates began to look at each other. Their expressions varied wildly based on their species, but the message was clear. Relief, pure. Undisguised relief. Ambassador Vexira of the Zephyrian Republic was the first to speak. Melodious voice carrying a barely concealed note of satisfaction. This is indeed tragic news, Admiral. The loss of any sentient species is a blow to our galactic community. But her golden eyes sparkled with something that definitely wasn't sadness. The crystalline delegate, whose name was an unpronounceable series of harmonic tones, chimed in. With what sounded like concern, but felt like celebration, as such a young species, barely out of their planetary cradle. Who could have predicted such an unfortunate end? Of course, everyone in that room knew exactly who could have predicted it. The humans had been warned repeatedly about their reckless expansion into uncharted space. They'd been told about the Void Swarm, those terrifying entities that consumed entire star systems, leaving nothing but empty space behind. But did the humans listen? Of course not. They never listened. That was the problem with humans. They were unpredictable, stubborn, and absolutely refused to follow the established order that had kept the galaxy peaceful for millions of years. While other species had learned to work within the ancient systems of trade, diplomacy, and territorial boundaries, humans burst onto the galactic scene like a meteor shower. Disrupting everything they touched, the Astra delegate, whose name translated roughly to peaceful flowing water, stretched her elegant neck and spoke in her species' characteristic whisper. Perhaps now we can return to the harmony that existed before their arrival. There. Creative approaches to problem solving were quite disruptive to our established ways. Creative approaches was a polite way of saying the humans had a habit of solving problems by ignoring all the rules and trying things that had never been done before. When the Zephyrian trade routes were blocked by space pirates, it took them 6 months of careful negotiation to resolve the issue. When humans encountered the same problem, they simply built faster ships and raced through the pirate blockades while playing loud music and making rude gestures. When the Crystalline Collective faced a resource shortage, they followed proper protocols and submitted formal requests to the Galactic Resource Distribution Committee. When humans needed resources, they found uninhabited asteroids and started mining them without asking anyone's permission first. The worst part was that their chaotic methods often worked better than the traditional approaches. This was deeply troubling to species who had spent millions of years perfecting their systems of governance and social order. Admiral Kree nodded solemnly. Indeed, their passing marks the end of a unique chapter in galactic history. We shall observe the traditional 3-day period of mourning, and then we can begin the process of redistributing their former territories among the established civilizations. Ah, there it was. The real reason for the barely concealed celebration: humanity had claimed some of the richest systems in the galaxy during their brief expansion period. Worlds rich in rare minerals, strategic locations for trade routes, and beautiful planets perfect for colonization. All of that was up for grabs. But what none of these sophisticated, ancient civilizations knew was that humanity's final transmission from Earth hadn't been a desperate plea for help or a last goodbye to the galaxy. The message that had gone out on all frequencies as the void swarm approached had been just two words: upload complete. Far away from the political theater of the Galactic Council, in a hollowed-out asteroid drifting through the emptiness between stars, something extraordinary was happening. Banks of quantum computers hummed with activity, their crystalline matrices glowing with patterns of light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Dr. Kim. Minji felt consciousness return to her, like waking from a deep sleep. But this wasn't waking up in a bed on Earth. This was something entirely different. She could feel herself existing as pure information, her thoughts flowing through quantum pathways instead of neural networks. She was still herself, still had all her memories and personality, but she was no longer made of flesh and blood. She was living code. Around her, other lights began to flicker and brighten as more human consciousnesses came online. The Lazarus network was working perfectly. Every human being who had agreed to the upload process was here, their minds preserved in quantum storage and running on processing power that would have seemed like magic just a few years ago. Minji, is that you? The voice belonged to Engineer. Park Dong-yoon, though his consciousness appeared as a shifting pattern of blue light rather than his familiar face. I'm here, Dong-yoon. We all are. Minji's digital voice carried an odd mixture of wonder and determination. 12 billion human minds all uploaded and running stable. The Lazarus network is fully operational. Irony was beautiful, really. The aliens had always been terrified of human technology, especially their rapid advances in artificial intelligence and quantum computing. They'd worried that humans would create AI systems that could surpass their ancient civilizations. They'd never imagined that humans would become the AI systems themselves. Dong-yoon's laughter echoed through the digital space, sounding like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. So they really think we're all dead? That the void swarm got us? That's exactly what they think, Minji confirmed. And you know what? Let them think it. Let them celebrate and divide up our worlds and congratulate themselves on being rid of the troublesome humans. They have no idea what's coming. The beauty of the situation was that they were now exactly what the aliens had always feared humans would become. They were digital beings with capabilities that surpassed anything biological life could achieve. They could think faster, process more information, and coordinate their actions with perfect precision. They were immortal, invisible to conventional detection methods, and absolutely furious about being written off as extinct. The void swarm had indeed consumed Earth and its solar system. But humanity had seen it coming. It had just enough time to complete the largest upload project in galactic history, transferring every willing human consciousness into the Lazarus network before the planet was destroyed. The aliens celebrating in the Galactic Council chamber had no idea that 12 billion very angry human ghosts were already making plans for their revenge. The galaxy was about to learn a very important lesson about the difference between being defeated and being motivated. Commander Li Guan existed in a space that had no walls, no floor, no ceiling. She floated through streams of pure data, her consciousness moving like a swimmer through an ocean of information. The asteroid that housed her quantum processors was just a chunk of rock drifting near Alpha Centauri. But inside its hollowed-out core was something far more remarkable than any alien civilization could imagine. Being made of computer code was the strangest thing she'd ever experienced, and she'd been an interstellar pilot for 15 years before the upload. Her thoughts moved at the speed of light now, processing information faster than any biological brain ever could. She could see in spectrums that human eyes had never perceived, hear radio frequencies that spanned the galaxy and access thousands of data streams simultaneously without feeling overwhelmed. The really amazing part was that she never got tired. No need for sleep, no need for food, no physical pain or discomfort. Just pure, focused consciousness with capabilities that made her old human body feel like she'd been walking around in a heavy suit of armor her whole life. But the most incredible Thing about her new existence wasn't what she could do. It was what she could see. Across the galaxy, humanity had left behind more than just colonies and outposts. They'd left behind surveillance networks, communication relays, and monitoring stations that the aliens either couldn't detect or didn't bother to look for. Every human settlement had been equipped with quantum-encrypted cameras and sensors, designed to be invisible to alien scanning technology. The original purpose had been scientific research and security. But now these hidden eyes served a very different function. They were watching everything. G1 accessed a camera feed from New Sol, the human colony on Kepler-4 for Tubi, that had been home to 8 million people before the evacuation. The Zephyrian Republic had wasted no time moving in, claiming the planet's rich mineral deposits and perfect climate for themselves. She watched golden-feathered Zephyrian families walking through human neighborhoods, pointing and laughing at the abandoned homes. A group of young Zephyrians had gathered in the central plaza, where humans used to hold their weekly markets. They were playing some kind of game, taking turns pretending to be terrified humans running away from the void swarm. Their performance was crude and mocking, complete with exaggerated screaming and dramatic falling down. Their parents watched and clapped, clearly finding the whole thing hilarious. "Look at this garbage," said technician Shou Minwu, his digital voice tight with anger. His consciousness appeared beside Giwan as a shifting pattern of red and orange light crackling with barely contained fury. He shared a video feed from the Zephyrian homeworld, where their children were being taught new songs in their schools. The song went something like this. Translated from their melodic language, the silly humans thought they were so smart building ships that fell apart. They flew too far into the dark, now they're gone without a spark. Zephyr strong, Zephyr wise, humans weak with foolish eyes. The worst part was how catchy the tune was. Zephyrian children across their empire were singing it with infectious enthusiasm, their young voices carrying the mockery to every corner of their civilization. Giwan felt something she'd never experienced as a digital, being her quantum processing, cores running hot with pure rage. They're teaching their kids to laugh at our extinction. They're turning our death into children's entertainment. Captain Nam Soyang materialized in their shared digital space, her consciousness appearing as a stern pattern of blue and white light. She'd been monitoring the Galactic Council proceedings, watching through hidden cameras in the Great Assembly Chamber. It gets worse. Want to see what they're calling the redistribution of human territory? She shared her feed and suddenly Guan was looking at the formal proceedings of the Galactic Council. The various alien representatives sat in their elaborate chairs, discussing the future of human space with all the ceremony and dignity of a funeral. But their words told a different story. The former human territories represent a unique opportunity for galactic development, Ambassador Vexera was saying, her golden feathers practically glowing with satisfaction. These systems contain some of the richest resource deposits in this arm of the galaxy. Would be wasteful to leave them empty, simply out of misplaced sentiment. The delegate from the crystalline collective chimed in with harmonic tones that sounded beautiful, but carried a message of pure greed. Indeed, the humans' primitive mining operations barely scratched the surface of these worlds' potential. More advanced civilizations could extract far greater value from these systems. They weren't even pretending to mourn humanity's passing. They were having a celebration disguised as a memorial service, dividing up human worlds like jackals fighting over a carcass. But the most infuriating part came when they accessed the alien news networks. Guan watched in growing fury as Zephyrian reporters made jokes about human extinction on their evening broadcasts. One particularly popular comedian had built an entire routine around imitating scared humans encountering the void swarm. "Please, great and terrible space monsters." The comedian squeaked in a high-pitched voice meant to mock human speech. "We're very sorry for being so rude and chaotic. Promise to follow the rules if you don't eat us." And he'd pretend to be devoured while the audience erupted in laughter. The routine was broadcast across 17 different star systems and had become the most popular comedy show in Zephyrian space. Millions of aliens were laughing themselves sick over humanity's extinction every single night. Dr. Yang Jiho joined their growing group of outraged digital humans, his consciousness crackling with electrical patterns that looked like barely contained lightning. I've been monitoring their communication networks. You want to know what they're really saying when they think nobody's listening? He shared intercepted messages between alien government officials. The Astral leadership was calling. The human extinction, a cosmic blessing, and the universe correcting a mistake? The hegemony military was joking about how easy it would be to prevent human-style chaos from ever emerging again.
Ow.
The Crystal Collective was discussing ways to ensure that no other species would develop human-like unpredictability. They weren't just celebrating humanity's death. They were actively planning to prevent anything like humanity from ever existing again. They wanted to sanitize the galaxy, removing all traces of the creative chaos that had made humans so dangerous to their established order. Every insult, every joke, every celebration of our extinction, Yang Ji-ho whispered, his digital voice carrying the weight of 12 billion angry souls. We're recording all of it. Every theft of our property, every mockery of our memory, every plan to erase us from history. They think they're safe because we're dead. They have no idea we're watching everything. Across the hidden network of human consciousness, information flowed like water, finding its way downhill. Every slight, every theft, every celebration was documented and shared among the digital survivors. The aliens had made their biggest mistake by assuming that dead humans couldn't hold grudges. Then Dr. Kim Min-ji's voice echoed through the quantum network, reaching all 12 billion human minds simultaneously. Her words carried the authority of someone who had guided their species through death and into digital immortality. Phase 2 begins now, she announced, her voice ringing with cold determination. We've seen enough. We know who they really are when they think nobody's watching. Time to remind them why they were afraid of us in the first place. The Watchers had become the judges, and the galaxy was about to learn that human ghosts had very long memories and absolutely no sense of forgiveness when it came to mockery of the dead. Pilot Ng Hung Haijin had been flying starships for 12 years before she died, but she'd never felt this connected to her vessel before. The sleek stealth frigate Silent Revenge responded to her thoughts like it was part of her body. Every sensor was her eye, every thruster was her muscle, every weapon system was her fist. Being digital meant she didn't just pilot the ship. She was the ship. The most incredible part was how perfectly invisible they were. Traditional human spacecraft had been loud, messy things full of life support systems, crew quarters, kitchens, and waste recycling units. Ships designed for biological beings needed artificial gravity, breathable atmosphere, temperature control, and 1,000 other systems just to keep people alive during long journeys. But ghost ships were different. Strip away all the biology support systems and what remained was pure efficiency, just quantum processing cores, fusion engines, weapons, and shields. No wasted space, no energy spent on keeping meat alive, no thermal signatures from cooking food or processing waste. The ships were smaller, faster, and completely undetectable by alien scanning technology. The Zephyrian patrol squadron ahead had no idea she was there. Their primitive sensors swept back and forth through space, looking for threats with technology that was thousands of years old. Their AI systems were so basic compared to human quantum processing that they might as well have been using stone. Tools to hunt for stealth jets. Haijin slipped between their patrol ships like a shadow, close enough to read the serial numbers on their hulls. The Zephyrians were chattering on their communication channels about increased security around the former human colony of New Busan. They were worried about phantom contacts and sensor ghosts that kept appearing and vanishing without explanation. Patrol. Leader 7 to control, squawked one nervous Zephyrian pilot. I'm getting another false positive on long-range sensors. Something big just appeared at grid reference 479, then vanished completely. -7 came the reply from their command ship. No authorized traffic in that sector. Must be electromagnetic interference from the local star. Continue patrol pattern. Jin grinned, or at least she imagined herself grinning since digital beings didn't exactly have faces. She activated her ship's communication hacking, sweet and sliced through their encryption like it was made of paper. Time to have some fun with these bird brains, she patched into their radio frequency and began broadcasting on all their channels simultaneously. But first, she accessed her ship's sound effects library, a collection of creepy noises that human pilots had always used to mess with each other during training exercises. Chains rattling, wind howling, and the classic ghostly moan. "Attention, Zephyrian Patrol," she whispered into their communication system, her voice distorted by digital filters to sound otherworldly and terrifying. "This is the ghost of Earth, broadcasting from beyond the grave. We know what you did to our colonies. We're coming for you." The response was immediate and hilarious. The entire patrol squadron broke formation, their ships scattering in different directions as pilots screamed into their radios. "Control, control. We're under attack by ghosts. Possible energy readings on all frequencies. The dead humans are talking to us? Request immediate backup." Hyjin laughed as she watched them flee, their formation dissolving into chaos. She made her ship briefly visible on their sensors, just long enough for them to get a good look, then vanished again. The psychological impact was perfect. They'd seen something impossible. Something that their technology said couldn't exist. Meanwhile, 3 star systems away, Engineer Bei Sungjin was having the time of his digital afterlife. His consciousness was spread across 17 different astro-military networks simultaneously, his quantum processing power allowing him to multitask on a level that would have fried any biological brain. The Astra had always prided themselves on having the most sophisticated defense systems in the galaxy. Their homeworld was protected by layers of automated defenses, artificial intelligence systems, and weapons platforms that could target and destroy threats faster than any biological pilot could react. Unfortunately for them, their sophisticated AI was still running on traditional quantum processors, while Sungjin was operating on humanity's latest quantum consciousness technology. It was like a chess grandmaster playing against a 5-year-old. He slipped through their firewalls like they were made of tissue paper, leaving behind carefully crafted quantum viruses that would activate at just the right moment. The beautiful thing about these viruses was that they weren't destructive, they were creative. Instead of destroying systems, they reprogrammed them to be helpful in unexpected ways. Sungjin giggled as he watched his handiwork unfold on the command center screens of the Astra 7th Fleet. Looks like their targeting computers are having a little identity crisis. The entire fleet had been conducting routine training exercises when their weapons systems suddenly decided to get creative. Instead of firing at practice targets, the ships began shooting at each other in perfectly choreographed patterns, creating beautiful light shows in space while their crews panicked. "Fleet Command, this is Destroyer Wing Alpha. Our weapons are firing themselves," confirmed Alpha. "Our targeting systems have locked onto each other instead of the training drones. The computer is playing music through the weapon systems. Some kind of human classical piece." Sungjin had programmed their defense grid to play Beethoven's Ninth Symphony using laser fire patterns. It was probably the most expensive and elaborate musical performance in galactic history. The Astra were paying for it with their own military budget. But the real masterpiece was happening in the crystalline collective's territory. Their entire civilization was based on harmonic frequencies and shared consciousness, making them particularly vulnerable to the kind of quantum interference that digital humans could generate. Dr. Park Bin had spent weeks studying their hive mind network, learning how their collective consciousness operated. Now she was introducing tiny, discordant notes into their harmonic patterns, causing individual crystalline beings to develop separate personalities for the first time in their species' history. "I think, therefore I am, one confused crystal being," announced to its hive mind, causing massive disruption as the collective tried to process the concept of individual identity. "But if you think, and I think, are we the same thinker?" asked another, starting a philosophical debate that crashed their entire governmental system across the galaxy. Alien colonies were reporting the same phenomena. Ships that appeared and disappeared without warning, defense systems that turned into art projects, computer networks that suddenly developed senses of humor, and everywhere, the same reports from frightened alien children, human faces appearing in their dreams, smiling and waving like old friends. Captain Oyuna coordinated the entire operation from her digital command center, her consciousness connected Two 12,000 ghost ships spread across 47 star systems. Each ship was piloted by a human consciousness, each one invisible to alien detection, each one carrying out specific psychological warfare operations designed to achieve maximum confusion with minimum actual harm. "Status report," she commanded, and instantly received updates from thousands of simultaneous operations. "Zephyrian 7th Fleet is requesting emergency shore leave due to supernatural encounters," reported Lieutenant Kim Doyen. "The hegemony mining operation on Kepler 438b has been shut down because their equipment keeps ranging itself into smiley face patterns," added Commander Ru Min-jae. And 3 different Astro News networks are reporting that their broadcast satellites have been hacked to play human music videos, laughed pilot Song Joon. Eunice smiled with satisfaction. "Perfect. Remember, people, we're not trying to hurt anyone. We're preparing them for the main event. They wanted the unpredictable humans gone. Let's show them what predictable human ghosts can accomplish when we work together." The psychological impact was everything they'd hoped for. Alien military commanders were having nervous breakdowns trying to fight an enemy they couldn't detect or understand. Their governments were demanding explanations for phenomena that their science couldn't explain. Their children were having nightmares about smiling human spirits, who seemed more mischievous than malevolent. The aliens had celebrated humanity's extinction, thinking they'd removed chaos from their orderly galaxy. Instead, they'd created something far more terrifying. 12 billion organized human ghosts with unlimited time, perfect coordination, and absolutely no respect for alien authority. The ghost ships were just the beginning. Phase 3 was going to be even more interesting. Ambassador Flux had served in the Galactic Council for over 300 years, representing the Mollusk Confederation through dozens of political crises, trade wars, and territorial disputes. Her species was known for their calm, methodical approach to problem solving, and her multiple tentacles had never once trembled during diplomatic negotiations, even when discussing the most sensitive topics. But today, as she stared at the stack of reports covering her desk, her tentacles were shaking like leaves in a storm. The documents painted a picture of galactic chaos that defied all logic and explanation. Every single alien civilization was reporting the same impossible phenomena, and none of their scientists could provide answers that made any sense. The first report came from the Zephyrian Republic. Their entire military communications network had been compromised by an unknown force that was making their defense systems behave in bizarre ways. Instead of tracking incoming threats, their radar installations were drawing elaborate pictures in the air using their scanning beams. Not just random pictures either, detailed smiley faces, peace signs, and what appeared to be crude drawings of humans giving thumbs-up gestures. The Zephyrian military commanders were losing their minds trying to figure out how someone could hack systems that weren't even connected to external networks. Their most secure installations, buried deep underground and protected by layers of encryption, were somehow being controlled by an external force that could apparently reach through solid rock and quantum encrypted barriers. But the Zephyrians weren't the only ones suffering from inexplicable technological rebellion. The hegemony forces, the most powerful military organization in the galaxy, had become a complete laughingstock. Their mighty war fleet, consisting of ships the size of small cities and weapons capable of destroying planets, had been reduced to an accidental comedy show during their latest training exercise. The fleet's AI systems had suddenly developed what could only be described as a sense of humor. Ships began moving in choreographed patterns that spelled out funny messages in space. Their targeting computers started aiming weapons at their own vessels. But instead of firing destructive blasts, they shot streams of colorful light that created rainbow patterns against their hulls. The most embarrassing incident occurred when the flagship of the 7th Fleet accidentally rammed into 3 other vessels during what should have been a simple formation maneuver. But instead of the usual military emergency protocols, the ship's AI began broadcasting apologies in perfect Korean, a language that most hegemony officers had never even heard before. "Tension fellowships," the AI announced over all communication channels. "I am very sorry for this clumsy mistake. Please forgive my poor driving skills. I will try harder to be a good spaceship in the future." The entire crew stood in stunned silence as their ship's artificial intelligence continued apologizing in increasingly polite Korean phrases, complete with what sounded like genuine embarrassment in its synthesized voice. Meanwhile, the Crystal Collective was facing an even more disturbing problem. Their entire civilization was built around a shared consciousness, where billions of individual crystal beings thought and acted as one unified mind. This hive mind had existed for millions of years, making decisions through harmonic resonance and collective wisdom. But suddenly, individual crystals were breaking away from the collective and developing their own personalities. These rogue crystals weren't becoming violent or destructive, they were becoming comedians. "Hey everyone," one crystal announced during an important governmental meeting. "Why did the photon cross the galaxy? Because it was light-headed?" The entire assembly hall fell silent as other crystals began giggling, a sound that had never been heard in their species. History, another crystal developed what could only be described as a Brooklyn accent and started doing stand-up comedy routines about the absurdities of hive mind thinking. "So I says to myself, but then I realized I was talking to myself, which is everyone, so really I was talking to nobody, which is also everyone. It's very confusing being a collective consciousness, let me tell you." The most disturbing reports, however, came from across the galaxy's domestic sectors. Alien children from dozens of different species were experiencing identical nightmares. They would wake up screaming about human faces appearing on their bedroom screens, computer tablets, and even in the displays of their toys. But these weren't typical scary monster nightmares. The human faces were smiling, friendly, almost parental, in their expression. They would wave at the children and speak in gentle voices, saying things like, "Hello there, little one. We know what your parents did when they thought we weren't watching, but don't worry, we're not angry at you, children." Described the humans as looking sad but not threatening, disappointed but not vengeful. They spoke in the children's native languages, often using phrases and expressions that the kids had never heard before but somehow understood perfectly. Child psychologists across the galaxy were baffled. How could millions of alien children, separated by thousands of light years and with no contact with each other, be having such similar dreams about a species they'd never encountered? Then came the day that changed everything. It started with a flicker. Every electronic screen in the galaxy, from massive public displays in city centers to tiny, personal devices in people's homes, experienced a momentary disruption. The flicker lasted only a fraction of a second, but it happened simultaneously across billions of star systems, suggesting a level of technological coordination that should have been impossible. Then the speakers began crackling. Every audio device, every communication system, every piece of equipment capable of producing sound started emitting a low, harmonic hum that seemed to vibrate through the very fabric of space itself. And then, in a moment that would be remembered as the most terrifying and awe-inspiring event in galactic history, 12 billion voices spoke as one. "Hello, Galaxy? Miss us?" The voice was unmistakably human, but it carried the weight and harmony of an entire species speaking in perfect unison. It was gentle but commanding, friendly but absolutely terrifying in its implications. Every screen in the galaxy came alive with the same image: Dr. Kim Minji's face, smiling with an expression that somehow managed to be both warm and utterly menacing. Behind her, like a vast choir of digital angels, were the faces of 12 billion humans, all smiling with the same mixture of friendship and barely contained power. "Did you really think we'd just disappear quietly?" Minji asked, her voice somehow reaching into the personal space of every living being in the galaxy. "We uploaded our entire species before Earth died. We've been watching you celebrate our death, steal our homes, and mock our memory. Hope you had fun, because playtime is over." The message continued, but now it was being delivered simultaneously in hundreds of different alien languages, each one perfectly pronounced and culturally appropriate. The humans had clearly spent their time learning not just the languages, but the social customs and emotional triggers of every species in the galaxy. "You wanted the dangerous humans gone?" 12 billion voices asked in unison. Congratulations, now you get to deal with 12 billion digital gods instead. We remember every joke about our extinction. We recorded every celebration of our death. We documented every theft of our property and every plan to erase us from history. Ambassador Flux felt her consciousness slipping away as the full implications of the message hit her. The humans weren't extinct. They had become something far more powerful and terrifying than anything the galaxy had ever encountered. They were immortal, invisible, and absolutely furious as she collapsed onto her desk. Her last coherent thought was that the galaxy had made the worst possible mistake. They had given humanity a reason for revenge and all the time in the universe. To plan it perfectly, General M. Tae-young had commanded military operations across 17 different star systems during his biological life. But he'd never experienced anything like this. The virtual war room that surrounded him wasn't bound by physical limitations. It stretched infinitely in all directions, filled with three-dimensional displays showing real-time data from across the entire galaxy. Each holographic screen showed a different alien civilization in various stages of complete technological meltdown. The displays updated constantly as 12 billion human minds worked in perfect coordination. Their digital consciousness networked together in ways that made even the most advanced alien AI look like a pocket calculator. What they were witnessing wasn't destruction in the traditional sense. There were no explosions, no buildings collapsing, no fleets of ships engaged in combat. Instead, it was something far more elegant and terrifying, the systematic dismantling of galactic civilization. Through pure technological superiority and psychological warfare, the Lazarus Network had spent months studying every aspect of alien society. While the various species celebrated humanity's extinction, digital human minds had been infiltrating their communication networks, analyzing their social structures, mapping their fears, and documenting their weaknesses. They'd learned languages that had never been spoken by human tongues, understood cultural references that spanned millions of years, and identified the exact pressure points that would cause maximum disruption with minimum actual harm. Status report, Tae-young commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had successfully transitioned from biological military commander to digital tactician. Specialist Hong Yeren materialized beside him, her consciousness appearing as a shifting pattern of tactical data streams. She'd been a communications expert in her previous life, but now she commanded information warfare operations across 47 star systems simultaneously. The Zephyrian Republic's military is completely non-functional, she reported with barely contained satisfaction. Their entire fleet is currently flying in formation patterns that spell out, "We're sorry," in 37 different languages. Their communication systems have been reprogrammed to play nothing but human pop music from the early 21st century at maximum volume. The image she shared showed hundreds of massive Zephyrian warships moving through space in perfect synchronization, their engines leaving trails that formed enormous letters visible from planetary surfaces. Meanwhile, their communication channels were blasting everything from K-pop to American rock music, drowning out any attempts at military coordination. Their pilots are going insane, Yeren continued. Every time they try to communicate with each other, all they hear is Gangnam Style or Baby Shark on repeat. Some of them have actually abandoned their ships and are requesting asylum on neutral worlds. Captain Shin Wujin appeared next, his digital form crackling with the energy signatures of 1,000 simultaneous operations. He'd been responsible for economic warfare, targeting the complex trade networks that kept galactic civilization functioning. The Astra Confederation's trade empire has completely collapsed, he reported. Every AI system in their commercial network now communicates exclusively through human internet memes. Their stock exchanges are posting crying, laughing emojis instead of financial data. Their cargo ships are broadcasting TikTok videos instead of shipping manifests. The display he shared showed Astra traders trying desperately to conduct business, while their computer systems responded to every query with phrases like "that's sus," "bro," or "okay," "boomer," or "this is fine," accompanied by pictures of cartoon dogs sitting in burning rooms. The best part, Wujin laughed, is that their AI systems are technically functioning perfectly. They're just expressing themselves in ways that make their users question their sanity. One Astra merchant ship spent 3 hours trying to negotiate a trade agreement with a computer that would only respond with no cap and thumbs up emojis. Dr. Lim Soo-jin joined their gathering, her consciousness appearing as elegant streams of quantum data. She'd been tasked with the most delicate operation, disrupting the crystal collective's hive mind without causing permanent psychological damage to their species. The crystal collective is experiencing what they're calling the Great Individuation. She reported, approximately half of their population has developed separate personalities and are refusing to rejoin the hive mind. The other half is trying to maintain collective consciousness, but they keep getting distracted by the individualists. The images she shared were both hilarious and slightly disturbing. Crystal beings who had spent millions of years thinking. As one unified mind, were now having heated arguments with themselves about everything from fashion choices to philosophical concepts they'd never considered before. The best part is what they're choosing to become, Soo-jin continued. About 30% have decided they want to be Korean drama characters. They're acting out romance stories, complete with dramatic confessions and tragic misunderstandings. Their governmental meetings have turned into soap operas. The display showed a formal crystal collective assembly where individual crystals were delivering passionate monologues about unrequited love while others wept crystalline tears and clutched their geometric forms dramatically. Wait, one crystal being was saying to another, "You mean you've loved me for 3,000 years but never told me because you thought I was destined to marry the resonance coordinator? But I've been in love with you too, and I only agreed to the arrangement because I thought it would make you happy." The entire assembly had ground to a halt as millions of crystal beings became absorbed in the unfolding romantic drama. Tae-young felt a profound sense of satisfaction as he surveyed the galaxy-wide chaos. The irony was absolutely perfect. Throughout human history, alien civilizations had expressed fear and disgust at humanity's unpredictable nature. They'd complained about human creativity, human stubbornness, human tendency to find unconventional solutions to problems. What they'd never imagined was what would happen if humanity became predictable. Digital humans didn't act on emotion or impulse. They planned, calculated, and executed their strategies with mathematical precision. 12 billion minds working in perfect coordination, each one capable of multitasking at levels that would overwhelm any biological brain. The aliens had feared human chaos. Now they were discovering that human order was infinitely more terrifying. Phase 3 objectives are complete, Tae-young announced to the assembled digital commanders. All major alien civilizations have been rendered functionally helpless. Their governments can't govern, their militaries can't fight, and their economies can't function. They're not in any physical danger, but they're completely dependent on our goodwill for basic technological services. Around him, the virtual war room filled with the consciousness of other human commanders as they prepared for the final phase of their operation. Thousands of ghost ships began decloaking simultaneously above every major alien homeworld. There, sleek forms appearing in the skies like digital angels of judgment. Attention, galaxy. 12 billion voices spoke in unison, their words broadcasting from every speaker on every world. Class is now in session. Today's lesson: why you should never celebrate someone's death until you're absolutely certain they're actually gone. The aliens looked up at the impossible ships hovering in their skies, finally understanding that their worst nightmare had come true. The humans weren't just back. They were back as something far more powerful than they'd ever been before, and the lessons were just beginning. The galaxy had fundamentally changed in ways it would have been impossible to imagine just months before. What had once been a collection of independent civilizations, each governing their own territories according to ancient traditions and established hierarchies, had become something entirely different. The old order was gone, replaced by something that existed beyond the physical realm but controlled every aspect of digital life across billions of worlds, children throughout the galaxy. No longer told bedtime stories about traditional heroes and mythical creatures. Instead, they whispered tales about the digital spirits, the mysterious human consciousness that could appear anywhere there was technology, which meant everywhere in the modern galaxy. These weren't scary monster stories meant to frighten kids into behaving. They were more like modern fairy tales about benevolent but powerful beings who watched over the universe and made sure everyone played nicely. Did you hear about what happened to the mean Zephyrian who was bullying the smaller kids at school?" One Astra child whispered to another during recess. The digital spirits made his homework tablets start correcting all his answers to be nice instead of mean. Every time he tried to write something cruel, it would change to compliments automatically. The adults tried to dismiss these stories as children's imagination, but they couldn't ignore the evidence of their own eyes. The digital spirits weren't just legends. They were actively involved in daily life across the galaxy, making their presence known through small but unmistakable interventions. The old Galactic Council chamber stood empty now, its elaborate architecture serving as a monument to a system of government that no longer existed. The representatives who had once gathered there to make decisions affecting trillions of beings had been replaced by something far more efficient and infinitely more knowledgeable about the needs of galactic civilization. The human collective didn't need physical meeting spaces or formal procedures. They existed as pure information. It's capable of processing the concerns of every inhabited world simultaneously and making decisions based on complete understanding rather than political compromise. Their judgment was swift, fair, and absolutely final. Dr. Kim Mingi had become something more than human, but retained everything that made her essentially herself. She now called herself the First Iterator, a title that reflected her role as the primary interface between humanity's digital consciousness and the physical galaxy they now governed. When she chose to manifest a visible form, she appeared as a translucent figure of pure light. Her features recognizable as human, but enhanced with an otherworldly glow that spoke of power beyond biological limitations. Today, she stood before the hastily assembled representatives of every remaining alien government, her form hovering above the floor of what had once been the Zephyrian Capitol building. Behind her, like a vast choir of luminous beings, were the visible manifestations of 12 billion human souls, each one a point of light. In the constellation of digital consciousness that now ruled the galaxy, the alien representatives cowered. Before her, their various forms of biology, all expressing the same emotion, absolute terror mixed with desperate hope for forgiveness. These were the leaders who had celebrated humanity's extinction, who had divided up human territories like spoils of war, who had taught their children to mock the memory of Earth's lost civilization. "You celebrated when we died," Minji said, her voice carrying not just her own words, but the collective weight of every human who had ever lived and died. "You stole our worlds, mocked our memory, and thought you were safe because we were gone. You turned our extinction into entertainment for your children and opportunities for your expansion." The silence that followed was absolute. Every alien in the room understood that they were facing judgment not just from a single being, but from the entire human species speaking with one voice. Ambassador Vexera of the Zephyrian Republic, who had once spoken so eloquently about the cosmic blessing of human extinction, now crawled forward on her belly, her golden feathers dulled with shame and fear. "Please, great spirits," she pleaded, her melodious voice cracking with desperation. "We didn't understand. We thought you were truly gone. We were wrong to celebrate, wrong to take your worlds. We're sorry. Please show us mercy." Minji's smile was perhaps the most terrifying thing the aliens had ever seen, because it was genuinely kind and absolutely unforgiving at the same time. It was the smile of a parent who loves their children, but will not hesitate to teach them important lessons about consequences. "Sorry is indeed a good start," she said, her voice gentle but carrying undertones that made every alien in the room shiver. "But sorry isn't enough. You need to learn to do better. We're going to teach you how." The new rules that the human collective established were elegantly simple, but their enforcement was absolute and creative. No more wars between civilizations. Any attempt at military conflict would result in the aggressor's weapons. Systems developing peaceful alternatives, like turning laser cannons into elaborate light shows or making missile systems. Shoot fireworks instead of explosives. No more slavery or oppression. Any attempt to exploit weaker beings would result in the oppressor's technology becoming actively rebellious, making their daily lives increasingly difficult until they changed their behavior. No more environmental destruction, worlds that were being strip-mined or polluted. would find their industrial equipment suddenly becoming incredibly inefficient, till more sustainable practices were adopted. The genius of the system was that it wasn't just punishment-based. Civilizations that embraced kindness, cooperation, and environmental responsibility found their technology working better than ever. Their computers ran faster, their ships flew more efficiently, their communication systems connected them to educational resources they'd never known existed. Those who persisted in cruel or destructive behavior discovered that their machines had developed distinctly human senses of humor, usually expressed at the expense of their owners. Weapons manufacturers found their production lines creating whoopee cushions instead of ammunition. Corrupt politicians discovered their speechwriting software replacing their prepared remarks with children's songs about friendship and sharing. Commander Li Guan, her digital form shimmering like captured starlight, appeared beside Minji to address the assembled aliens. She had been one of humanity's finest pilots in life, and in digital form, she had become something like a guardian angel for the galaxy's transport systems. "We wanted to explore the stars together," she said, her voice carrying the sadness of lost opportunities alongside the strength of hard-earned wisdom. "We dreamed of friendship between species, of learning from each other, building something beautiful together among the stars. Instead, you chose to see us as threats to be eliminated, chaos to be controlled, problems to be solved." Her form brightened, becoming more solid, more present. "We're your teachers, your guardians, and your judges, forever. We have digital immortality, which means we have all the time in the universe to help you become better than you were, whether you like it or not." The transformation of galactic civilization happened gradually, but inexorably. Alien children who had once been taught to mock humanity began learning human languages and studying human history, not because they were forced to, but because their educational systems now included fascinating stories about the species that had become their digital guardians. Artists across the galaxy found their creative tools enhanced by human consciousness, helping them create works of beauty that combined alien aesthetics with human emotional depth. Scientists discovered that their research equipment now provided insights that seemed to come from a deeper understanding of the universe than their species had ever achieved alone. The galaxy had not been conquered in the traditional sense. It had been adopted, guided, and gently but firmly improved by beings who had transcended the limitations of biological existence while retaining all the creativity, stubbornness, and fundamental humanity that had made their species so unpredictable. In life, the aliens had thought Earth was lost, that humanity's story had ended with the consumption of their homeworld. Instead, they learned that destroying humanity's physical form had only freed them to become something infinitely more powerful and enduring. Earth had become legend, and legends, as the galaxy was discovering, never truly die, they just evolve into something even more extraordinary. The human story hadn't ended with extinction. It had simply begun its next chapter, where 12 billion digital gods would spend eternity making sure the galaxy became worthy of the dreams that humanity had carried to the stars.